welcome to Plus One Forward, the podcast powered by the Apocalypse, where we talk about tabletop role-playing games using or inspired by the Apocalypse engine. I'm your MC, Rach, and I'm joined both by my co-MC, Rich.
Hey, Rach.
And our guest tonight, David Brunel-Bretman. Welcome to the show, David.
Hi, Rich. Hi, Rich.
Hey.
Really psyched to be on.
Good to have you back.
Yes, welcome back. David is a returning podcast guest. You may remember him from our Hogwarts episode back in 2019. It's been a while since we last spoke. What Powered by the Apocalypse games has impacted you the most since we last talked, David?
So I was thinking about this for a bit, and I was trying to kind of like rack my brain for like a pure PBTA game that I'd been really into, really playing a lot, really checking out a lot, that had really influenced what I was doing. And what I really kept coming around to was Blades in the Dark, which is maybe a Powered by the Apocalypse game and maybe isn't. It sort of has things that are kind of like skills from a traditional RPG, but also kind of like moves from PBTA. And I know the creators have said that they feel like it is a Powered by the Apocalypse game in certain contexts. So it's sort of maybe one thing, maybe the other, but like when I really think about it, that's the game that has really impacted me the most recently.
Read a sitch.
It's time for our first segment, Read a Sitch, where David will discuss with Rich and I some aspect of Powered by the Apocalypse play culture that he feels needs to be spotlighted a little bit more. So, David, take it away.
Something that I think is interesting that I haven't come across a ton of talk about is sort of exactly what it means to play to find out. So in Powered by the Apocalypse, I think almost every single Powered by the Apocalypse game has somewhere in it, either whether it's in the principles or game instructions or what have you, the idea of play to find out. It's interesting because that's often interpreted as you should not prep, you shouldn't plan outcomes, you shouldn't have any sort of preconceived notions about what's going to happen in your game. But the other thing that Powered by the Apocalypse games are awesome at, because they lean so heavily into creating narrative, is genre emulation. And there's so many PBTA games out there that are just like great genre engines, where you have some kind of specific genre and the game is all about getting you a rule set that makes that genre happen at your table. So, you think about something like Dungeon World, right? Where you're playing a game that's about the genre of D&D. You have something like Monster of the Week, where you're playing a game that's about the genre of a Monster of the Week TV show, a Buffy, an X-Files, or whatever. Every time that I have come to PBTA as like a system, as a designer, the reason that I end up there is inevitably because I'm thinking about a genre of something, and I'm like, all right, how can I make a rule set that will make this genre happen for people? Those are actually two kind of conflicting ideas when you think about it, because genres have like a really rigid set of expectations, right? When you go into a sci-fi action blockbuster, right? When you go into a Star Wars movie, a space opera, you have a very specific set of expectations about what you're going to see. Even though at the same time you don't want to be spoiled about what happens in the details, right? So there's that tension there. And Powered by the Apocalypse has that tension because you're playing to find out, so you don't want to pre-plan what's going to happen. But at the same time, a lot of the time you're playing heavily into genre, where you do kind of know what's going to happen. So there's that like weird contradiction. And I think it's a super interesting one, and I think it's one that people can lean into simply by thinking of playing to find out how rather than playing to find out what. So a lot of times we know the what. We know that the heroes are going to defeat the villains in the end. In Monster Hearts, we know that probably somebody is going to get into some sort of romantic entanglement that is bad for them in some way. We kind of know the plot points. But what's interesting then, if we know the plot points, they're these sort of like signposts, right? What's interesting then is if we have these signposts, all the in-between stuff, how does it happen? What does it cost the characters to accomplish their goals? Do all of the characters accomplish their goals? Do some of them come into conflict with each other in accomplishing their goals? The sort of questions of how people are doing things. So I was playing in a reasonably long-running Monster of the Week campaign that was, I think I've mentioned this on this show before actually, set in 1950s New York and dealing with like weird super science and sort of like B-movie pulp stuff. And we had this cast of characters who were sort of drawn from different walks of 1950s New York City society. And like the genre of that, you know, at some point the heroes will be able to defeat the monster. We knew that we would pretty much be able to like defeat the giant radioactive rat that was rampaging through downtown. But what's interesting then is how. It's the questions of, all right, if we defeat this thing, what are the personal repercussions? What does it take if the police detective is going around to his superiors talking about the radioactive rats and they don't believe him, but he knows that he's the guy who has to get the team together and take him down? What's that going to cost him professionally? And I think leaning into those moments can be really interesting in a way that's kind of underappreciated in Powered by the Apocalypse. So ways to do that, I think, end up sort of being character-based. It's, I think, driven more actually from the player side than it is from the MC side. Yes, the MC is going to lay out ideas about where the plot can go based on their moves and reacting to your moves and sort of generalized ideas that they might have. That's the what. But then the players are the ones who really determine the how. It's looking at your character. It's trying to figure out what they want, what they're willing to give up, what they're not willing to give up, and what are sort of the personal stakes for them, and then pushing those things forward to sort of maneuver them through those signposts of the plot of the game. And I think that ends up being ultimately narratively satisfying in a way that if you weren't thinking about the overall like structure of the genre that you're playing in, you couldn't necessarily get to.
So David, I hear what you're saying on a theoretical level, but like at the table, is this a situation where you're talking about like eliding moves if they seem to trigger against the expectations of playing to find out how? Or are you talking about creating specific custom moves so that you can get to that how piece? Like, how does that move from the theoretical? Like, how do I do that at the table?
Okay. All right. I don't want to be mean to anybody, but I think if you have a good PBTA game, you can find this sort of stuff in the moves. You don't have to abandon the game or go against the spirit of the game. And if you do find yourself in a situation where you are constantly pushing against the results of a move, your genre expectations maybe aren't actually aligning with the game that you're playing. And you might actually need to look at a different game. Like maybe you've just sort of picked the wrong game for the genre you want. Because in an ideal situation, I think what happens is the play should still be informed by the moves and the results of the moves, right? When you have a move, you're getting to that sort of, you're reaching a sort of crisis point in the game, right? Where you don't know what's going to happen and you need some external rules to resolve it. And again, that isn't necessarily connected to like the overall structure to the thing. That can be like a moment to moment kind of thing. So if you hit a move, you do your roll. Let's say you're looking at a 7 to 9 where you probably get mostly what you wanted, but there's some sort of drawback. That's the ideal time for the how of the narrative to come in, because okay, maybe we're trying to get to this point over here where we, to use a super simplistic example, defeat the bad guys, even though that's not like always a super PBTA way to think about things, but we'll just roll with it for the sake of this.
Sure.
So if we know we're trying to get to this point where we defeat the bad guys, if you as a player hit that 7 to 9 on a move where you are engaged in some sort of conflict with the villains and you have some sort of drawback, well, what you should be, I think, looking at is which of those drawbacks is going to create the most interesting story between where I am now and where I kind of see off on the horizon that I'm going to go. Which of these is going to inject some drama into the proceedings and kind of make my character's life more interesting? Because that's the other thing, right? Is make the characters' lives not boring. And I think make the characters' lives not boring is such a how question. It's such a question of what are the things that people are actually doing moment to moment and the sort of ups and downs, and are these characters going to come into conflict with each other over the method that they want to use to achieve this goal, or are you going to experience a setback, or even is a character going to drop out of the narrative? I think that can be just as much a how question. If you get to a point where you can no longer continue, I think that's a point at which you can look at and say, okay, we have an overall story, but this character's time in that story is done. And that is an interesting how question, because the genre, like structure of the thing that you're making, can still be intact, even though you have these big ups and downs. And I think those feed directly from the moves and the rolls moment to moment. And what you should be looking at is always, okay, what's like the unexpected thing that has been thrown at me? And how can I pick the option there from the move? Because the move reinforces the genre, right? How can I pick the option there that is going to get us to the place that we want to be narratively in the way that is cool and interesting and fun for the group to experience?
Well, hey, David, let's jump on over here and open our brains to the game that you've brought to us today, okay?
Absolutely.
Open your brain. So on Open Your Brain, what we do is our guest discusses an Apocalypse Engine game or mechanic if they aren't a designer, but luckily David has a game for us. You can pick up the playset and some information from his itch store. It is called Teens with Attitude. All right, TWA, what is this thing? What's the setting? What's TWA about?
Yeah, so Teens with Attitude is a game that is all about 90s action and drama. In this game, the players are a bunch of teens who live in a small city somewhere in North America in 1993. They have secret powers which they have to use to defend the world, but they have to overcome all of their teenage drama in order to do it. So you should be thinking things like Power Rangers, Animorphs, Captain Planet, all those sorts of early 90s action shows where you have a group of kids who get amazing powers, have to fight the bad guys, but also have to deal with their interpersonal issues and their sort of mundane real lives on the side. And in this game, you and your friends get to create your own original 90s action show in that style.
Neat.
What specific 1990s action teenager shows were you inspired by?
So the main three touchstones are Power Rangers, which is a long-running TV series about a series of different teens who transform into costumes and summon giant robots and fight evil. The Animorphs, which was a book series in the 90s, all about a team of teens who get the power to transform into different animals and have to essentially get enlisted in this war for the future of the Earth against this race of alien infiltrators. And Captain Planet, which I believe started in the late 80s, but went into the early 90s, and is about a team of teens who get the power to control different elements, and then use that power to take on corporations who are doing environmental malfeasance in the world. It's also inspired by a couple of other bits and pieces here, generally early 90s TV, things like The Secret Adventures or Secret World of Alex Mack, Kim Possible, and generally this sort of specific genre of like a bunch of teens have superpowers and have to save the world that really kind of took off in the early 1990s in American culture.
What mechanics are different in Teens with Attitude compared to your standard Apocalypse World?
Yeah, so I've said the word team about 100 times at this point because so much of this style of thing is about working together as a team. One of the big differences in Teens with Attitude versus Apocalypse World is the team playbooks. So I had spoken earlier about Blades in the Dark, which is another game where you have an individual playbook that's your own character, but then you also have a group playbook that represents the entire team. And in Teens with Attitude, the group playbooks give you a couple of moves that are about using specific powers, and they also, most importantly, determine the theme of the game that you're playing. So right now, as I mentioned, those key touchstones are Power Rangers, Animorphs, and Captain Planet. And there are 3 playbooks that are each sort of themed to the ideas that are around those shows. So you have a Mecha Rangers playbook, which is all about doing cool martial arts and summoning giant robots and combining your robots together and generally doing ridiculous stuff with weapons and your crazy color-coded costumes. You have the Biomorphers, which is the Animorphs Inflected playbook, which is all about transforming into animals and using those powers. And then an Elementeers playbook, which is somewhere between like a Captain Planet and an Avatar The Last Airbender thing, where each teen on the team controls a different element as their superpower. The other key difference from Apocalypse World is the attitude system. So it's Teens with Attitude. So attitude is an actual resource in the game that teens build up as they experience complications in their lives and then get to spend to do awesome, rad, cool stuff in the game. And attitude, if people are familiar with Worldwide Wrestling, is very similar to the momentum mechanic in that game.
Oh, okay.
It works best when it's tracked with little chips, which you sort of trade back and forth from a central pool. You gain attitude by doing stuff like making drama or delivering a one-liner, both of which are moves in the game. And you also, in this game, gain attitude on a 6- roll. So there's no experience points or experience tracker in Teens with Attitude. The way that you advance your character is as a team to sort of reinforce that team idea. So you have a series of goals, and if you check those off at the end of a session, everybody gets to upgrade their character. So in lieu of giving experience as a consolation prize for hitting a 6 or less on your standard moves, you get attitude, because that represents some sort of hardship or setback that your teen has faced, but now they have a resource that they can call on later to do cool stuff. And the cool stuff is, again, similar to momentum in Worldwide Wrestling. You can take your attitude and you can add any amount of attitude that you have to a roll to bump it up, do something a little cooler than you otherwise would have, and you also spend attitude to activate certain key powers and certain team powers. So when you get to that cool scene where everybody needs to do the transformation sequence, or you all combine into the giant robot to punch out the big giant villain, that's the point at which you're throwing that attitude in, spending it in order to just kick butt and do some awesome stuff.
Cool. So of these butt-kicking things, what's your favorite move in Teens with Attitude and why?
Yeah, well, there is a move called Kick Some Butt. However, I do have to pick for my favorite Make Drama. So, as I mentioned, Make Drama is, I think, principal engine for gaining attitude in the game. The move reads, when you make drama by betraying someone's trust, acting on your feelings for someone, provoking someone with your words or actions, getting involved with something or someone you shouldn't, or ignoring something or someone you shouldn't, then you roll with the trait that best fits the situation. And depending on how that goes, people may let you get away with the drama that you've made, or they might not. What I love about this move is that it hits, I think, an underrepresented part of this genre. It would be very easy to just have a game that is all about cool robots, or shooting lightning out of your fingers, or summoning a big old gust of wind, or transforming into a tiger. Like, there's like this power fantasy thing there, right? And it would be really easy to just make a game that was that. And I think it would also be really boring, because what's interesting is not always what's the cool, awesome power. It's how are you using it with your friends, and what is the interpersonal drama that's informing the way that you are using your powers. You know, are you in a situation where you've gotten into a big fight with a friend, and now you have to work together because the fate of the world is at stake? That is a fun situation to put people in. And Make Drama really gets people at the table thinking in that mindset, because you get a reward for acting in ways that, maybe aren't the most pro-social, maybe aren't the best in a sort of idealized world, but are interesting and fun and make your characters do things and sort of get to sometimes very, emotionally honest places. And I really like the back and forth that it brings of that melodrama and that emotional honesty seesawing back and forth with this silly, over-the-top action that the rest of the game is about.
Fantastic. Well, I don't know about you two, but I think I'm ready to jump into my time machine over here and go back to the 90s. What do you all say?
Yeah, I'm ready to have some attitude.
Sounds like a radical idea to me.
It is time to act under fire.
That brings us to our last segment, Act Under Fire, where David will run us a short game of Teens with Attitude. Tonight, in our trip back to the 90s, I'm playing Chris, who is the popular kid. My animal is a hawk, my element is wind, and my color is pink. I am the super popular Pink Ranger with my acid-washed jeans and my brightly patterned shirt and my gold watch. I am the best-looking 16-year-old kid in Bay City.
I have chosen to play the Outcast. My character's name is Lance Plusser, and his color, he is the green Mecha Ranger. He's a 16-year-old with a flannel shirt, of course, Doc Martens, and a studded choker. His obligations are play, rehearsal, and performance, and he's pretty obsessive about his thing, which is the occult.
I was going to ask you what your thing is. My thing is a cell phone the size of a brick.
Perfect.
Amazing. All right, let's jump into it. So we open with a shot of the Bay City, California Rec Center. This is your regular hangout where the two of you spend your time when you're not at school or out saving the world. We get a nice external shot with some palm trees waving in the breeze. This is I think, pretty modern building with some weird angles. We got some boppy music going in the background, and we dolly in there, and then we cut to interior rec center. Let me get a quick shot of what each of you are doing in the rec center at this particular moment. You've just gotten there after school, and you're chilling out. It's a regular day.
What we would see for Lance, first shot is of his Doc Martens. He's pacing back and forth, sawing the air with his hands, with a playbook in his left hand, and he is rehearsing lines. Nobody's going to read lines with him, so he's doing a couple of different voices, and I think it's like Waiting for Godot. I mean, it's something very 90s play and very, very
yeah, that's heavy. That's deep.
Thank you.
All right, what about Chris?
The rhythm of Lance's practicing is broken by the sound of Scotch tape, that really thick packing Scotch tape, as Chris puts posters up for a dance that's happening at the rec center next Friday.
Nice.
Awesome.
It's a fundraiser for some tragedy not here, possibly the other side of the country. But, her heart's in the right place.
Sure. She's out there trying her best. So the two of you are there, and that later today, there is going to be a giveaway on the local radio station. Tell me like the dumb 90s name that they call the local radio station.
KOMG.
KOMG. Does KOMG have like a dumb call sign?
Oh, yeah, let's see. It's Don't Bug Out, because it's crunk.
Don't bug out, because it's crunk. All right. We actually hear this information on the radio in the corner of the rec center gym where you guys are hanging out. There's a boombox off to the side, and KOMG is blasting from the speakers, and you hear the DJ say, "Hey, you're listening to KOMG 101 FM. Don't bug out, 'cause it's crunk. Say, all you kids out there in Bay City, we here at KOMG are doing a concert ticket giveaway in 30 minutes. It's the concert everybody's been looking forward to next week, and we have two tickets for the 10th caller. Now, that number that you need to call is going to be released in exactly 30 minutes. You're listening to KOMG. Don't bug out, 'cause it's crunk.
I definitely set my watch based off of the next time signal there is on the radio, so I know precisely in 30 minutes where to be.
Yes.
See, I can't set my watch because it's a swatch, so I can't really tell time with it.
But it looks banging.
So good.
So,
Totally.
What is the concert coming up? What band do the two of you love that's doing a concert in town next week that you really want to get these tickets for?
What? I mean, it could be Belle Biv DeVoe.
Fake bands are also acceptable.
Dang it.
Oh, do you got a good fake band? Because I think 90s, like those bare naked ladies in Great Big Sea, and none of those are cool for teenagers.
I'm not entirely sure. Band name generators are not very good.
Oh, I'm going to take something from my wall of let's go with Assembly Station.
Assembly Station.
Yeah, Assembly Station. We're all about Assembly Station.
Yeah, all right. So you guys freaking love Assembly Station. It is the coolest band. You've bought all of their cassette tapes. You love this band. They're coming to town next week. If you can be the 10th caller into this radio station, you can get those 2 tickets for free.
Yeah, Lance, I'm going to need you to call 9 times.
Okay, I guess I'll have to go. We're at the rec center, so there's got to be a phone in the admin office, right?
And there's a payphone in the lobby, so that's 2.
That's like 25 cents, okay?
So at this point, as you're discussing your strategy for calling into this contest and getting these concert tickets, one of you spots walking into the rec center your biggest crush. Which one of you spots the crush, and who is it?
I'm okay with the one with the crush. That's cool.
I'm okay with you having a crush. Gives me an excuse to look into some local gossip about them.
It's Lupe the Goth. She's so fine. She's banging.
So Lupe, the cool goth girl, pokes her head into the rec center. She's got her full goth outfit, all black. She's got some big old, dangerous-looking platform Doc Martens on. Got some spiky bracelets. She kind of looks around, appraises the room, and she sees you, Lance, and walks over to where you and Chris are standing near the boombox, listening to the radio. And Lance, she says to you, hey, Lance, how you doing? What's up?
Lance swallows heavily. There's a moment of showing a close-up of his forehead as beads of sweat start to form. He looks down at her, cooler than his Doc Martens, her cooler than his choker. Hey Lupe, we were just gonna call KOMG for the tickets to the concert.
Yeah, for like Assembly Station, right?
Yes, do you like them?
Ugh, man, Lance, I freaking love Assembly Station, and I saw that you had a sticker of theirs, like, on your binder.
Right.
And so I knew that you would be calling in to the station to get those tickets, because I heard about it, that they were doing the call-in contest. So I wanted to come find you and ask you if you were going to call in.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I just got to get into the office, because, I'm going to call a bunch of times, and I don't have much change in me, so I thought if I could just kind of hide out in the office and pull the phone down, like under the desk, I could just make all the calls.
Yeah, that's really smart, Lance. I knew that you would be the one who would come up with like a good plan for it. So like, who are you going to give the other ticket to? Because like, I'm free that night and I don't have a ticket or anything. So like, if you had an extra ticket, if you won the contest, it'd be like cool or whatever if you gave me a ticket.
Oh, there's so much dance music playing in the background. Sorry, Chris. Yeah, Lupe, that sounds awesome.
Chris, how do you react to this?
Chris is fuming right now, and she hears that, and she hears Lance break, and her first instinct is to go and break the lock on the admin office to stop him from having access to that phone. Like, immediately take matters into my own hands, and I'll go figure out how to speed dial 9 times.
Do you stomp off?
Oh, of course. I'm going to go make some drama, I think.
I think you're both making some drama here. So, Lance.
Yeah?
Give me a roll to make some drama, and let's make that plus weird, because you're trying to overcome your social weirdness by giving in here.
Okay, here we go. My weird is a +1.
Weirdo.
Oh, sweet, I'm gonna weep. I rolled a 9 + 1 is a 10.
All right, so on a 10 plus, you get away with it, and you're going to gain 2 attitude. Mark off that you have 2 attitude. I didn't mention this earlier. Everybody should have started with 1 attitude.
Just only makes sense.
Yeah, there's a baseline. You have minimum attitude at all times.
It's teens with attitude, not teens without attitude.
Precisely. Okay, so Lance, you're going to get away with it for now. Meanwhile, let's see how things go for Chris. Chris, you've gone storming off. Lance, you made drama by either getting involved with someone you shouldn't, Lupe, or possibly ignoring someone you shouldn't, your friend Chris. And I think, or possibly you may have betrayed somebody's trust. All are good options.
Definitely.
Chris,
yeah.
I think by storming off, you made some drama by ignoring someone you shouldn't, because you've decided not to address this with Lance and instead go and foil his plans.
Yes, I am going to go lock myself in the admin office. I have finally said I was going to break the lock. I'm just going to lock myself in.
I'm going to say you're feeling a little sharp. You're feeling a little pointy, aggressive, right? Give me a roll plus sharp for make drama.
That is my worst stat at -1. However, I rolled an 8.
Okay, cool. So you get away with it, but the person you made drama with isn't happy about it. However, you're still going to get +1 attitude. Lance, you see Chris storm off. She doesn't really seem to be telling you what she's up to, and you're not feeling so great about your decisions right now.
Yeah, well, I'm still doing it.
Yeah,
I
Lupe
may not
says.
even win.
Lupe says, "Oh, Lance, your friend doesn't seem very happy."
Well, Lupe, Chris had just asked me if, we were going to go in and go to the concert, and I kind of said yes. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And now you said you were going to go with me, so that, really sucks for her.
Wow.
You hear weird static on the radio, like the music that was playing kind of cuts out, and then there's this, really loud, ear-splitting feedback that just emerges from the boombox. Lance, you turn around, and you see bolts of electricity shooting out from this boombox, and it begins to Transformers style kind of expand and reconfigure, and before you know it, with this series of mechanical maneuvers, your boombox has transformed into a large human-sized robot. It's this shiny, blocky boombox-looking robot, and it is glowing with this green energy that you immediately recognize as the signature of your enemies, the Zarloth Empire. They've been trying to take over the Earth by infiltrating your small town of Bay City, California, but thus far you've kept them at bay. And now they've somehow found a way into your human Earth technology.
Oh.
So you are faced with this boombox robot, which turns to you and in the radio DJ's voice says, "Human, it's time for you to get boomboxed." And
That's
it
terrible.
winds up and is about to throw a big metal punch right at your head, Lance. What do you do?
Ooh, I want to get the heck out of the way, but I'm mostly worried about Lupe, right? So I'm going to try to leap into action and make sure that she is okay. I can take a hit. I can
Cool.
do it.
All right. Give me a roll to defend someone. That's a roll plus fit.
All right. Roll plus fit. So my fit is a -1. Maybe I can't take a hit. Let's find out. That is a 7 -1 is a 6.
Okay. So on a 6-, you aren't able to defend your target. However, you're going to gain 1 attitude, so that's pretty good. So I'm going to hit you with some damage. You are going to have 2 damage coming your way, Lance, as this boombox robot winds up and boom, with a big clangy punch, hits you right in the noggin. You go sprawling, and the boombox robot leaps forward and grabs Lupe, and he goes for her arm, where she has several cool watches that she's wearing, and it begins tearing the watches off her arm and dumping them into its open metallic boombox mouth, which is presumably where the cassette insert was previously, and just starts chomping on these watches. And Lupe is like, "What the hell? Those are my watches!" Chris, you have reached the office at this point. You are about to enact your plan of petty subterfuge when you hear some sort of tremendous commotion happening back from the gym.
Given that I am a pilot of a mecha in this small town, a lot of commotion like that is a sign that some shit's going down. I gotta get on top of that. Chris turns on her heels and runs back towards the gym. What does she see?
You run back down the rec center hall, and you open the double doors to the gym, and you see a scene of chaos. There's a human-size, glowing boombox robot stomping around the gym. People are running in every which direction, and whenever the robot gets close enough to some sort of bit of electronics, it grabs it and shoves it into its robot mouth and begins chomping on it. And you can see when it does that, the glow increases around it. It seems to be getting stronger the more technology it eats. What do you do, Chris?
I think Chris is going to kick some butt because this is a 90s teenager game.
Hell yeah.
Going to run up and try to push it over, knock it over, delay it till they're able to get a sense of the full situation. But stopping this creature from eating electronics seems like the first step in this process.
Cool. So give me a roll plus fit to kick some butt.
That was not that great. I am not as fit as I thought I was. That is only a 5.
All right. So your target evades the attack. You're going to get an attitude, so that's cool. But you also have 2 damage coming at your way. What kind of an attack are you going in for, Chris?
I'm trying to sweep the leg.
Yeah, okay. So you go in for the leg sweep. The robot pivots on one leg very stiffly out of the way and is able to avoid your leg sweep. And then turns around, and you can see that glowing energy sort of go into it for a second, and there's a and then a big blast of sonic energy comes out from the speakers on its chest, and it bowls you across the room. You go skidding across the wood floor, Chris, right to where Lance is. What do you do?
I glare at you because I look at, was it Lupe is your not girlfriend, right?
For now, yeah. Not girlfriend for now.
Yeah, Lupe is standing there like, that thing ate my freaking watch. Somebody do something.
Like, Lance, if she wasn't here, we'd be able to transform. My God. Ugh.
Yeah, so I see here that I might have the ability to keep my powers secret. Is there any way that I can... I'm really not good at fighting. Maybe I can Mecha Ranger up a little bit here, but keep it secret that it was me?
Yeah, so you could attempt to distract Lupe and make sure she doesn't see your transformation sequence. You could duck out of the gym and back in. You could...
Ooh, I hate it, but I think duck out of the gym and back in is the way to go.
All right.
Oh my God, yes!
He's going to seem cowardly, but that's the first thing you can think of. So Lance books it out of there, his Doc Martin squeaking on the floor, and I guess I am trying to keep my powers secret from someone, and it's my age, right? So I roll plus cool?
Yep.
My cool is a minus... Oh my goodness, I'm so uncool. -2. Yeah, that is a terrible fail. I've rolled a 4, -2 is a 2.
All right. So, again, gain some attitude. I think you're building up to that 5 attitude limit, so think about what you want to do.
I have reached 5 attitude.
Yeah, so start throwing that attitude out. Time to spend. So you get that attitude, but things get worse, and you blow your cover. Lupe says, Lance, where are you going? Wait for me! And runs after you. And I think, Lance, you do not notice that she has run after you. So if it's time to trigger your transformation sequence, she's going to see it happen.
Yeah, I think so. Lance runs out of the main rec room area where we were hanging out and dashes into a hallway, hides underneath the set of stairs thinking this is the perfect place. No one will see him. He's transformed here like hundreds of times.
That's your spot.
And it's also where we can use stock footage to save money. And he reaches into his shirt and he pulls out this crystal because he's the weirdo who's into the occult. So he uses the crystal and it shines this super bright light, and that begins his transformation sequence as he becomes the Green Mecha Ranger, which is weird because that's the color of the Zarlot Empire. Could he have gotten this? Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm sure we'll never follow up on that.
Who could say?
It's a mystery.
We get your transformation sequence, Lance, and then Chris. Are you going to transform as well? Is it time to morph?
Oh, definitely. I wait for Lupe to run out, and then Chris reaches and removes the false bottom on her cell phone to reveal her pink crystal.
Yeah.
Nice.
And transforms. It's like your stereotypical Power Ranger outfit with kind of like hawk motifs on the helmet, and I have a badass cape.
Yes.
a cake. I love it.
Cool. So we get that transformation sequence. Lance, you run back into the gym, I assume, yes?
Yeah, right past Lupe, right?
Who goes, Lance? What the heck?
Oops.
And we get a shot of Lance and Chris, the two of you on either side, facing off against this boombox robot, which glows with this green energy. And as it sees that the Mecha Rangers have arrived to kick its butt, you hear the DJ voice go, "Oh, well, if you're gonna transform, I guess it's time for me to transform." And the boombox, with the energy that it's consumed from all of the electronics that it's eaten in the rec center, begins to expand even further and grow until it fills the entire gym with its metal boomboxy bulk. And the two of you are facing off against this giant robot. And that's when we cut to commercial.
Wow. That was fantastic, David. Thank you so much for giving Teens with Attitude a spin for us.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving Teens with Attitude a spin as well.
Man, I had a great time. David, if people want to find more of your work online, where can they look you up?
So if you want to learn more about the game, you're just going to go over to teenswithattitude.com. You can download the quick start of the game for free. That's on itch.io or on DriveThruRPG. There are also a couple of little supplemental materials that you can get as well. In addition to that, if you want to support the development of this game, which is, as of this recording, ongoing, we're currently in beta. Depending on when you listen to this, we may have reached the stage of an Ashcan book, but as of recording, that is currently in progress. So if you want to support continued development, you can join my Patreon, which is patreon.com/DavidBrunelBrutman. And I'm also on Instagram, david.brunelbrutman. You can see my drawings and illustrations, including art for the game that I've been doing throughout development, character illustrations, cover art, stuff like that. And all of my stuff is over at davidbrunelbrutman.com. But, of course, for Teens with Attitude, you're going to want to go over to teenswithattitude.com.
And thank you once again for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Plus One Forward is a production of the Gauntlet community, Richard Rogers and Rach Shelkey. You can find us at gauntlet-rpg.com or follow us on Twitter at @+1FWD. If you would like to support our show, visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/gauntlet. The games mentioned on this show use the Apocalypse engine, which is a creation of Vincent and Magay Baker. The music for Plus One Forward is from the Savage Aural Hotbed CD Gomi Daiko. The songs used are Gomi Daiko, Metal Version, and Drowning Attitude. You can find more amazing tunes by Savage Aural Hotbed on their website, www.savageauralhotbed.com.
Hi listeners, we want to let you know that Brindlewood Bay is now available on DriveThruRPG. Brindlewood Bay is a role-playing game about a group of elderly women, members of the local Murder Mavens Mystery Book Club, who frequently find themselves investigating and solving real-life murder mysteries. They become increasingly aware that there are supernatural forces that connect the cases they are working on, and in particular, a cult dedicated to the dark, monstrous aspect of the goddess Persephone will come to vex them. Brindlewood Bay is a cozy crime drama mashed up with Lovecraftian horror. It's Murder, She Wrote meets The Shadow over Innsmouth, and we think you're going to love it. Your download from DriveThru includes the rulebook for Brindlewood Bay, including a version for easy booklet printing, play aids such as the character sheet and dark conspiracy sheet, and 5 mysteries: Dad Overboard, All Hallows Scream, The Great Brindlewood Bay Bake Off, Jingle Bell Shock, and A Murder Most Mucky. We'll be releasing 10 more mysteries over the next few months. Some of these mysteries will be featured in the Codex magazine, and others will be part of a standalone mystery collection coming out in late summer 2020. The first of the new mysteries, Exit Stage Death, will be out this month in Codex Yellow 2, available through the Gauntlet Patreon. So be sure to check out Brindlewood Bay on DriveThru RPG. We'll include a link in the show notes. Thanks.